Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome back to the Wealth Rewide podcast. I'm your host, Mark Robinson, and today I have got my amazing wife and co-host Billie Robinson with me. Hey, babe, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, really good. It's always funny, right? We're
Awesome.
in we're in the same house, different rooms.
Right? Awesome. But hey, I love doing
Guys,
this and I'm
yeah.
excited about today's episode. Mhm.
Yeah, on today's episode, guys, we will be exploring all things money and relationships. And today we're diving into a challenge many couples face being on different financial pages.
Yeah, that's right. Look, it's not uncommon for partners to actually have completely different attitudes toward money. Like one might be a saver, the other one might be a spender, one might love spreadsheets, and the other not so much. Okay, these differences, though, they can actually lead to some tension, but they don't have to. So, in today's episode, we're going to actually discuss why financial mindset often differ and how these differences actually impact a relationship. And then we're going to talk about some practical strategies to realign towards these shared financial goals. Plus, we're going to include a few tips of strengthening communication around money. So let's get started.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So we're going to start by understanding why couples often find themselves on different financial pages. And a lot of it comes down to upbringing and past experiences, don't you think, Mark?
Oh, look, absolutely, guys. Like, for example, like if one partner grew up in a household where money was scarce, they might have a scarcity mindset, always wanting to save for a rainy day. And on the other hand, right, if the other partner had more of a comfortable upbringing, they might feel a bit more relaxed about spending or taking financial risks. And look, Billy and I, we were very fortunate, I suppose, that we both came from no money, and and we're talking like little or no money, and we will share our story in more detail over the coming episodes, guys. But we knew, right? And we just wanted something different. We didn't want to have that mindset, so we were always curious about how we could, do better as
Yeah.
a couple.
Yeah, and look, another reason why mindset differs in couples as well is also, you may be one of the partners have actually grown up in a household with negative experiences around money as well. So, like seeing their parents argue about finances, and now that they actually avoid talking about it altogether. These patterns they just often run deep. Okay, but the thing here is different doesn't mean incompatible. Okay, so understanding where these mindsets come from, that's the actual first step to bridging the gap. Okay, so let's talk about how misaligned financial mindsets can actually impact a relationship. The most obvious one is conflict, right?
Yeah.
Look, money is just one of the top causes of arguments in relationships. So, for example, if one partner is trying to save for a holiday and the other one's spending freely, then that resentment can build up quickly, and it's actually not just about the arguments. Misaligned mindsets, they can also lead to bigger issues like avoiding long-term financial planning or making decisions in isolation instead of making them as a team. So, but the good news here is that these issues, they can be resolved if both partners are actually willing to work on it together. Now, for the practical part here, how do you realign your financial mindset? So let's start with communication. Okay. So open, honest communication is actual key here. Now start by having a judgment free conversation about your financial goals and fears together. So for example, you could sit down and ask each other, what does financial security mean to you? What are your biggest money worries? And what are your short or your long-term goals? Okay, start by that, asking those simple questions.
Yeah, look, and it's really important to listen without interrupting or criticizing, right? Even if your partner's view is very different from yours, understanding their perspective. And, I think, they're all new and, fairly new relationships, going on a year or so. But, I think there's some, different pages with our kids, and their partners. And,
Yeah,
we were very similar as well, babe, when we first started. We
yeah.
were different to other couples. We got our money put together quite early in our relationship, and that
Mhm.
worked, right? It worked
Yeah.
extremely well. And so have a look at where you are on these pages, right? And you might find that some of you will be on on the same page, similar pages. Where
Yep.
you'll have to work a little bit harder will be if you're in completely different books, right?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And look, that just brings me to the next point, really. Like a great strategy here is creating a shared vision, So you need to sit down together and visualize what you want your financial future to look like. Maybe it's buying a home, maybe it's retiring early or traveling more. So when you actually come together and you're focused on a common goal, it is easier to find alignment. Okay. And as Mark
Exactly.
said, like we are finding this now as our daughters are both entering into new relationships or newish. One's quite new, the other one's been, a couple of years now, but they are now starting to talk about vision and where it is they want to go and how they're going to, use their money and all this sort of stuff together. So it is actually quite fun to watch. Our daughters go through this and grow together with their partners. Okay. So the other thing as well, and we tell them this as well, don't forget to compromise. Okay. So for example, if one of you wants to save aggressively and the other wants to spend a little more, just find that middle ground that works for you both.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's always foundations in everything we do in life, right? Whether it's, foundations around mindset, foundations around money, health, exercise, etc., etc. And one of the foundational stuffs is to simply just get your bank accounts in
Yep.
alignment, right? And like I said, Billy and I, we've always had our bank accounts together quite early in our relationship. And it wasn't because I, tore up her checkbook when we first met.
I'm sure you've all heard that story before. If you haven't,
Yeah,
you'll
right.
hear about it somewhere along the line.
Yeah, and those of you that haven't heard that story before, guys, I didn't do it from a controlling point of view. I did it
Yeah.
from an absolute place of love, and what have you, right? But have make sure you have, depending on how you guys have it, how we've always said it in when we're, coaching and what have you is, if you guys from a financial perspective or bank accounts and what have you, investing, what have you. If you have whatever you have right now is working, obviously don't change
Mhm.
it. If it's not working, look to change it because
Yeah.
Billy and I, we've been doing this. I mean, I've been in financial services for over 35 years. We've been doing financial coaching now, wealth investing coaching for the last 11 years. And we've seen pretty much everything. Yeah.
We have.
So we've seen those that work, right? That put their money together has worked. We've seen it not work. We've seen couples that have their money apart and it works, right? And we've seen that it not work. So if you're one of those couples that keep your money apart and it's not working, maybe try putting it together, right? And the
Mm.
other way around, if you see that if you've actually couples that have got their money together and it's not working, maybe try taking it apart for a while, right, to see how it is, because it's got nothing to do with your vision. This is just the detail stuff that you want to have a look at and go, well, what part of the detail that isn't actually working for us as a couple? Is that a fair
Yep.
comment, babe?
Oh, 100% completely agree. I was even just thinking about saying the same thing. So we're both on the same page. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I think, look, before we wrap up, guys, we let's share some tips for strengthening financial communication. I mean, first, how about doing some regular money dates?
Yes. Money dates. Look, that's just basically time that you're going to schedule with your partner to talk about your finances. Okay. So you can review your budgets, you can check your progress towards your goals, check on how your investments are going, or just simply touch base with each other about, upcoming expenses. And the key to this is to actually make it enjoyable as well. Maybe do it over a coffee, over a nice meal, over a bottle of wine. Just sitting down and actually having those regular money dates is a what we've found and what our members are finding is an actual really um what's the word it's absolutely mind-blowing to do it. So if you're sitting down, you're doing it together regularly, then you're going to both be on the same page. You're going to both be up to date with what's going on and what's working, what's not working. Okay. So another tip here is to actually use is using tools to stay organized, like shared budgeting apps. What this does, it actually helps keep you both on the same page without that endless back and forth as well. And one of the biggest thing is to, finally is to actually celebrate your wins together. Okay. So whether it's paying off a credit card or whether it's reaching one of your savings milestones or just recognizing any of your achievements as a team reinforces that shared commitment together.
Yeah, I think the key here though is, guys, is don't over celebrate, right? And the analogy
Yeah.
I always use is, you know, hands up who's in the past lost a couple of kilos and they've celebrated by having beer and pizza.
Yeah.
right? So if you are celebrating, paying off your credit card or something, just don't go out and spend $1,000 on your credit card to celebrate you paying off your credit card, right? Or
Mm.
spending too much money on something, shoes maybe. When it comes to savings or investing milestones, I think that to me is the key. You definitely want to
Yeah.
celebrate, but celebrate differently to what you've done in the past. Again, cannot stress enough, guys, if whatever you're doing working right now, don't change it, right? You can maybe do some
Yeah.
tweaks to make it better, but don't change what's working.
Yeah. Awesome. Alrighty, so I guess that actually brings us to the end of today's episode. So, if there's one thing that Mark and I hope you actually take away, it's that being on different financial pages doesn't mean you can't work together towards your shared goals. It's with understanding, communication, and compromise, you actually can create that financial harmony.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, guys, for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend or a partner who might find it helpful. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It really helps us grow this community. And if you've got any questions, then chuck it in the comments, right? It could be,
Yeah.
just even if you wanted to hold yourself accountable publicly, right? What actions will you take from this episode? What, if
Hmm.
any, have you had roadblocks in the past and maybe or even in the relationship when it comes to money?
Yeah. Awesome. All right, everyone. Until next time, remember, it's not about being the same, it's about moving forward together. So, we'll see you next time.
Bye for now.